morning. So, Sarah, are you okay with recording our conversation for those students who are unable to attend so they can hear from you today?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And I just want to let everybody know in the meeting that we are recording. So, just so you're all aware, you can probably see that at the top of the screen. So, my name is Sarah Rivet, and I'm here with Sarah Schrader today. And we are going to talk a little bit about her company, get some employment advice, and get the conversation started. So, Sarah, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your company, your role, your background.
So, hi everyone, my name is Sarah Schrader. I work in talent acquisition with Oshkosh Corporation. I technically work out of their corporate office, but I actually live in Milwaukee and work remote primarily. Oshkosh Corporation, we design, manufacture, build, and distribute some of the world's toughest specialty vehicles. So, those of you who are from the Fox Valley area, I'm sure are familiar with Oshkosh Defense and with like Pierce Manufacturing, who's part of our fire and emergency segment. But we also have two other segments that aren't as commonly known to people that living in Wisconsin because manufacturing happens outside. And that would be our access segment, which they build like scissor lifts and boom lifts primarily used for like construction purposes. And then second is our commercial segment, and they build concrete mixers and garbage trucks. And a lot of that manufacturing happens within Minnesota, Nebraska, and some other areas. But we are a global organization. So while we are headquartered in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, we do have offices all over the world. So we're a very large company, and we have lots of opportunities.
That's great. Well, speaking of opportunities, can you talk a little bit about career paths within your organization? And maybe you could also touch on what it feels like to work at Oshkosh Corp.
Sure. So there are there's a number of different career paths that you can go within Oshkosh Corp. And something that is really special, I think, with Oshkosh Corporation that a lot of companies try to ingrain in their culture, but don't do as great of a job as we do, is that we really want our team members to be in positions that they feel they can be the most successful and contribute to most of the organization. So there's a lot of times where people will work in maybe accounting for a while and really see that they have a passion for doing supply chain, and they might transition to more of a supply chain role. But I would say there's main groupings or main areas that we kind of segment our different career opportunities in. So there's engineering, there's global procurement and supply chain, finance and accounting, human resources, and then overall just administrative assistance types of roles. So we have opportunities within our corporate headquarters, which I'm sure you've maybe heard news of or seen, our new corporate headquarters on 4-wheel drive. It's personally, while I live in Milwaukee, I try to go up to the office as much as I can just because it's such a great building and environment to work in. There's a lot of opportunities for collaboration that happen in that building. They've really designed the spaces to allow that to happen. But we do have offices within our different segments of defense and fire and emergency within Wisconsin as well.
So, what kind of opportunities do you have that you're recruiting for right now?
So right now, I would say we have a lot of opportunities within engineering, especially for design positions. So people that have mechanical design and technology types of degrees, I'm happy to connect with you on LinkedIn and talk about what those opportunities look like. We also have opportunities within production teams for like team lead for production, which those types of roles, you're managing a team that's doing the assembly, strategizing on how to best arrange schedules and team members. There's a lot of customization that happens with our products, especially within fire and emergency. So it's a very strategic type of position. Also, global procurement and supply chain. There's different buyer positions that are available, project coordinator roles that are available too.
That's great. So, what does the hiring process look like in your company, and how has that hiring process changed since the COVID-19?
Right. Yeah. So I'll start off with a typical hiring process for what historically it has been before COVID. We have a careers website. If you haven't visited it before, I highly suggest you visiting it now. There's even a place that there's not a position right now that you're interested in. There's an opportunity to introduce yourself, which is basically submitting your resume and your personal information so that we can find you in our system for future opportunities. You apply on the careers website. From there, the recruiter, somebody like myself that works out of our corporate office, would receive your resume, review your information. If your information aligns well with the qualifications that we're looking for in candidates for the position, you would get an email from the recruiter asking you to set up a phone screen. This is typically about 20 to 30 minutes of a phone screen to just talk more about your background, why you're interested in the position, talk more about the company, what your career goals look like, and talk about next steps and answer any questions you may have. From there, the recruiter will take the notes and your resume to what we call the hiring manager, who is probably the person that you would be reporting directly to in the position if you were to be hired. And they're managing the recruitment efforts for this role. And they will select who to move forward with for next steps. Next steps would be an on-site interview with that hiring manager and their team. And then from there, a final decision is made. For some more technical positions and higher level positions, before an on-site interview, we might schedule an additional phone screen with just the hiring manager to talk more about maybe your use of certain types of programs or experience with certain types of projects. But more often than not, we just go right to the on-site interview and then a decision is made. Now with COVID, we're trying to minimize any unneeded exposure to people that need to be on site to do their position. So I would say some of our teams, like people that work in supply chain, that are like buyers or commodity managers, they're not working on site right now because they don't need to do their work on site. Myself included, recruiters, we don't typically need to be in the office to do our work. So not all of our team is in the office all the time. But what we've been doing is the same process with you apply online, a phone screen is scheduled. From there, we have been doing virtual interviews. So we use WebEx. I believe Fox Valley Tech has WebEx as well that your students are accustomed to using. And it would be a virtual panel interview. And then from there, we make a decision. There's some pros to this, that there's more flexibility with people's calendars, that with your calendar while you're in classes, you can block out maybe an hour or two instead of having to worry about commuting and showing up and where you need to go to. But also downside is you don't get to see the office that you'd be working in. You don't get a feel for how like parking works or how the office is set up. And overall, you're just kind of missing that interaction with the team members and seeing how they interact with each other. It's just not as personal of an experience, but we're trying to make the best of it while we can.
Yeah, I think we're all doing the same. So, with that, Sarah, what advice would you give for making a virtual interview successful?
Yeah, so for virtual interviews, I think that it's important to always test your audio and visual capabilities before the interview. There's been a number of times where we've set up these candidate interviews and they can't get their video to work. And even though we're trying to work through these tough times, it's important to try and make it as realistic as we can. There's a lot of we not only want to hear the answers that you have, but we want to see that you're able to keep eye contact. There's a lot of body language that goes into virtual or into interviewing. So that being said, when you are doing a virtual interview, you want to make sure you're sitting up straight. You don't want to be like lounging back in your seat or on your hand like this. Like you want to present yourself just like how you would in person, confident, attentive to what they're saying. Also, make sure that you're aware of what's in your background. So while I have a poster of a band that I like and a mirror over there, I don't have anything like pictures that might be distracting or anything, no animals in the background. You want to make sure that you're prepared and that you're able to focus on what the committee is saying, and also they are able to focus on what you're saying.
Yeah, that's great advice. What about, so in thinking of that hiring process, what would get a resume noticed to even get that call? So, what advice would you give on resumes, submitting that application to get to that interview step?
Yeah, so with resumes, I think while you're trying to get noticed and you're trying to make sure your resume sticks out, I would really steer clear from using colors or graphics unless you're a graphic designer in some regard. But if you're going for like accounting, engineering, or business or an administrative role, black and white text, size 11 or 12 font, Times New Roman Arial. You want to make sure that it's easy for the recruiter to read. You know, we get a lot of resumes, a lot of applications for these positions, especially when you're just graduating for entry level positions. And we want to be able to clearly read that information and not be looking all over the resume for your skills and what degree you have. So make sure it's just very straightforward and clear. Now, to make your resume stand out, you want to make sure that you're using action words to describe what you did and quantify and qualify the information of your experience. So if you are, let's say that you're applying for like a sales role, okay? So you could, and you had an internship experience or some experience in the past where you had some experience with doing like marketing. You could say, during my 3-month internship over the summer, I produced 50 ads that was able to, which directly affected, I don't know, $20,000 worth of sales, like from your ads directly, like something where you can use numbers to support your background or your experience. If you don't have that experience, just try to be as specific as you can. Instead of saying responsible for office procedures. Okay, what office procedures were you responsible for? Were you like sorting mail? Were you answering phones? Were you providing like customer service for walk-ins? Like, you want to be very specific, but without writing like paragraphs. One line of information, one sentence that's specific enough to what you were doing. Also, one thing that I noticed on resumes, it's not like a deal breaker, but just something to be cognizant of, is your tenses. So if you're in a job currently, you want to use present tense. Manage all incoming invoicing related to defense vehicle production or something like that. If it's a past position, manage versus manage. So you want to make sure you're paying attention to your tenses too.
Great, that's really good advice. So, what do you think makes a really successful job candidate? I mean, what wows you when you think of the people that you're hiring or your hiring managers are hiring? What are they looking for?
Yeah, so for myself as a recruiter during that first initial like phone screen, what I'm really looking for is that you're interested in the specific role that I'm talking to you about. So when I ask you, what do you know about Oshkosh Corporation? I want to hear an answer that's something like, I've been researching your website. I've known about your company for a long time. Your ethics and morals and what your company stands for is something that I'm really interested in and I'd love to be a part of. Not so great answers would be, well, you're in the area and I just thought I'd like see what's going on. Like, I want to see that you're directly interested in the position that I'm contacting you about. Also, that you did your research on looking what the position is asking for, that you state, I have this degree, that's what part of the minimum qualifications. I have experience working with vendors or whatever. And I think that I would be a really great fit for not only culturally for your organization, but from a professional standpoint as well. So when you're coming on site for an on-site interview, I would say that the committee is looking for something similar as well. They want to see that you have a passion for the organization, that you're not only interested in this role, but growing within the role. Now, that can sometimes be tricky. So if you are applying to an entry level position, like I do engineering recruiting, so I'm sorry that I keep bringing up engineering, but if you're saying that I am applying for this designer role because I eventually want to work in like this an engineering position. Well, okay, yes, that makes sense, but how are you planning on getting there? What are you planning on contributing to the designer role to help you get to that level? Are you planning going back to school and you want to use your experience to help you get broaden your mindset? You know, you always want to push it back to this is what I'm trying to achieve and this is how I feel like I can benefit the organization by achieving that. So not always what's in it for you, but what you can provide to the organization.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. What other advice would you give? I know there's a couple students in here that might be looking for an internship, or what advice would you give in that process?
Yeah, so for internships, I think that it's important to treat it just like you would an interview, right? So we know because you're a student that you don't have all the experience in the world to become a designer or a full-fledged buyer or project manager or whatever. But what classes have you taken that you've enjoyed that made you want to apply for this type of internship? How have you been successful in your classes? And how do you feel that would make you successful in an internship? So if we ask you for experience with a project that you've done, showcase how you handled that project well, how you met the deadlines of that project, how you asked for help from your professor or your peers if you didn't understand something. Show how your schoolwork is a direct indication of your success of how an internship be and why you're interested in that specific internship.
And do you think that it's important for students to have internships, or I mean, are the interns in your company, do they typically get hired on? Sometimes do they get hired on? How does that work with Oshkosh?
Yeah, so the internship program is very important to Oshkosh. We use that as a way to source top talent all the time. So we try to hire our interns as much as we can. And we do try and have those conversations with you and connect you with talent acquisition with myself after your internship to talk about opportunities. As for the question, is an internship important? I would say it depends on your career choice. What I want to say is yes, that internship is important, but not just an internship, but some level of experience, right? So if if you're not able to find a paying internship and you need to have an income, then how can you talk to your manager in your current position about getting experience that relates to your schoolwork? I think that students miss a lot of opportunities with not talking to their current employer. When I was in school, I went to UW Milwaukee and I was working as an office associate for the College of Engineering and Applied Science, actually. And I was sorting mail, I was answering the phones. And upon going into my senior year, I was like, I need to get some I'm about to graduate. I need to get some experience. And I talked to my HR manager about trying to get more experience. And they moved me into a position that I was able to get more experience that was more relatable to my degree. So then I went and I worked with the graduate programs office to help with recruiting efforts for graduate students, reviewing applications and whatnot. So I think that if you're not able to find an internship that fits what you need, that maybe talk to your current employer and for tasks that you can do to get you some more experience.
Yeah, how important is that networking piece? I mean, that kind of is exactly what you just said, but in your experience, how important is networking?
Yeah, it's very important, right? You're always. We just did a presentation for our summer interns talking about networking, and basically what it comes down to is you're always interviewing. Networking, I think, for people that are looking for career opportunities and looking to continue to grow in their careers, it's just another way of looking at interviewing. how can you talk to people, make connections with people, that you can build that relationship, that you can come back to them in the future and ask them questions about um, career opportunities, or what their advice is, or what their perspective is on a certain company. You always want to show that you're engaged and looking to continue to grow with who you're working with.
What advice would you give for networking in this virtual world?
So, yeah, it's different, right? So, LinkedIn is probably a good place to start, an easy place that everybody has access to. It doesn't cost anything. There are other like organizations within the area that maybe would be interesting to get involved in. I personally am not involved in those organizations, but I know that they exist out there. And I know they're doing their part to have virtual opportunities as well. But from a networking standpoint, I would say for sure, if you don't already have a LinkedIn, go on and get one. Add me. I'm happy to connect with you in the future to talk about opportunities. And as well as, people post a lot of positions that are available on LinkedIn as well. So if you connect with talent acquisition or a recruiter, they might be posting something that you'd be interested in. Or if you see them posting jobs, you can always message them and say, hey, I see you posted this, but are you hiring for this? This is what I'm interested in. We're happy to talk to you about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Those of us who've lived in this world have been using LinkedIn for a long time. But what about, what advice would you give for people who haven't even been started on LinkedIn?
So, for people that haven't started on LinkedIn, just to have like the basics of a profile, right? You want to include your Fox Valley Tech, that you're going to school for Fox Valley Tech, the degree that you are currently pursuing. Also, your career background. Now, this doesn't have to go all the way back to like when you were 14 babysitting or whatever, but maybe just your most recent experience. And then there's also a section where you can put a summary. And in that summary, if you are actively looking for positions right now, you could say currently enrolled in Fox Valley Tech, planning to graduate December 2020, looking for careers in blah, 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 blah. Please feel free to reach out to me, and you can put your email address in that summary if you want my resume, or if you want to connect about career opportunities or something like that. It doesn't have to be super extravagant or detailed like a formal resume, just what you're looking for, what your degree is, when are you planning to graduate, and how can we talk to you. Also, I would say it's important to have a photo of yourself. For the photo, you want to make sure that it's just your face and it's just you in the photo. So not ones with like your friends or your family, or if you're like out someplace. I've had like my friends take photos of me when I needed a new headshot, and the iPhone camera, or I guess I'm biased because I have an iPhone, but the iPhone camera is really advanced, and it takes just as good of photos as you for like a little one by one photo that's going on your LinkedIn profile than you could get with a professional headshot. So, and make sure you're dressed appropriately for that photo as well. Nice button up shirt for guys, or a polo for girls, a nice blouse, not too low cut, not too loud of print, black, white, gray, navy. So that's my advice for LinkedIn. That was kind of long winded.
No, that was great. I think those are all really important tips. And you are willing to connect with people. Do you prefer that they send you a message of why they want to connect with you, or will you just accept the connection request?
Yeah, I would prefer a message, just as if you said, "Hey, I attended the Fox Valley Tech webinar with you, and I wanted to accept your offer to connect. Like, happy to talk in the future or something." Just so I know who you are, and I can. It's a good way to build that relationship initially. That's not just somebody randomly that saw that I work at Oshkosh Corporation and want to connect. It'll help me remember and build a relationship with you faster than if it was just a random connection message.
Yeah, I agree. I always like to get those personalized requests so I know who I'm adding to my network. Well, that's really awesome advice, Sarah. Do you have any other advice you'd give as people are job seeking in this new way of job seeking today, and then I'll open it up for questions from the students.
Yeah, so I think one thing that would help job seekers a lot when they're applying for specific roles is if you get a message to do a phone screen. So, right, you're not going to like fully prepare for every single position that you apply for because you don't know which ones are going to call you for a phone screen and which ones aren't. More often than not, companies will schedule a phone screen with you, but they might just call you out of the blue. Personally, I'm not a fan of that. I want people to be prepared and I want to know that they're going to answer the phone when I call them. But some smaller companies might just call you if you submit an application. I've had that happen to me and I was like kind of caught off guard. So just have a general understanding of the companies that you're applying to, do a little research on what their products are, where they're located, what would you generally be responsible for if they were to call you. When it comes to a phone screen or going on an interview, the most helpful tactic that I have learned and helped students with preparing is you actually take the job description and you can put it in an Excel sheet or a Word doc, whatever is easier for you. List the responsibilities in one column. And then in the column next to that, list what if somebody would ask you, what is your experience with working with suppliers and negotiating contracts or something like that? You can put right next to that, my experience with negotiating contracts and working with suppliers is blah. Or I don't have experience with this yet, but in my class, this, so that you can be prepared to answer those core competency questions related directly to the job description. For me, it's been helpful to have almost like a study guide going into an interview for that. Just like you would prepare for an exam or a test, that you have your study guide that you prepared that was covered in all the course topics. Same thing with a job description. And then also really do your homework on the company's culture and mission statement and ethical standpoint. I know in our interviews, we always ask questions with, what does people first culture mean to you? Because we really pride ourselves on being a people first culture. Or why are you interested in Oshkosh Corporation? And how do you think that you would be a cultural fit for the organization? Those questions are just as important as your actual technical abilities for the position.
That's awesome. That research sounds really important piece of this process. So great. So now I'd like to open it up to questions from the audience, and you can feel free to ask Sarah questions about your job search, about Oshkosh Corp, advice she would have. This is a really great opportunity to get some resources. You could type them in chat. I do have the chat open, and I will repeat them. Otherwise, raise your hand or hop on the camera. Do we have any questions?
Hi, this is Edward.
Hi, Edward. Go ahead.
I have a few questions. Do 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 you view employment gaps negatively?
Oh, okay. So like on your resume, when there's a gap in
Right.
your employment. So no, but I would be prepared on answering why you have that employment gap. Did you take off time to travel abroad someplace? Did you take off time to take care of a family member? Or do you have a gap in your employment due to COVID and you lost your position? I would be prepared to answer those questions. So when I've seen people actually put it in their resume, like gap from there to there to be like a stay-at-home parent, or gap from here to here due to COVID layoffs or whatnot. And if they don't have that within their resume or spelled out somewhere specifically, when I've asked them about it, the most successful people have had a prepared answer and have, or if I didn't even ask them about it, they've explained it right out that I had a gap from 2003 to 2005 because my parent was ill. I took time off of work to help my family during that time. So not as long as you have an explanation for it and it makes sense, then no, it's not viewed negatively.
Okay. And my other question is, who is the ideal professional reference? What I've been doing is using people who I've worked with in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for professional reference, the ideal would be to have somebody that was your manager or somebody that you reported directly to, and then at least one of those, and then have one or two more like peer references, I would say would be good. At Oshkosh Corporation, we actually don't do reference checks. Just an FYI, it's not something that we require of applicants.
What if like my prior manager, she's retired now? How would I do that?
Yeah, if you don't have a professional reference that's a previous manager, then having 2 to 3 peer references is good. Sometimes companies will specifically ask for somebody that you reported directly to. That if you put in there's usually a place where you can put comments. If you put in the comments, previous manager is no longer retired and do not have contact information for them, then they usually accept that.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on video too.
Yep.
And I did see Amanda said, thank you for the details about LinkedIn. She didn't have any questions, but she thought that it was a great conversation and great advice.
Great. Yeah, you're welcome, Amanda.
Other questions? And maybe if I could I kind of have a question. You said that Oshkosh Corp doesn't do reference checks since that was on there. Do they do something in place of a reference check, or is it solely at the hiring manager's discretion?
Yeah, so once we select a candidate that we feel will be the best for the position, we do background checks and substance abuse screenings, but we don't do reference checks just because in our experience, the references that you give us are 99% of the time going to see great things about you. Otherwise, you wouldn't give us their reference. And also because we're recruiting for so many different positions and trying to get in contact with so many different people, it was a very time-consuming task to do 3 reference checks per person. So we decided that it wasn't a value-added business process for us, and we decided if we're going to do it for one candidate, then we have to do it for all candidates, right? So we just decided to get rid of it completely.
Huh, that's interesting. And I think that brings up a great point, right? A lot of times the references you do use are positive. So how much can you really learn from that? So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
very interesting. I learned something new today. Other questions from our participants? I'm not seeing any more questions in chat. Oh, I do see one now. Looks like James, do you want to jump on the camera?
I apologize. I'm not able to jump on a camera. I'm being lazy.
Oh, that's okay.
But I
Voice
do
is
have a
good
mic.
too.
And I've heard that interviewers ask off the wall odd questions sometimes. So I wanted to ask, tell me about the band that's on the poster behind you.
Oh, so the band that's on the poster behind me, their name is Moon Taxi, and I've been following them for a long time. I'm like kind of friends with them now. They're originally from Nashville, Tennessee, and they're my favorite band. And I went to go to Nashville on New Year's to go see them with my best friend, and that's the poster from the concert where we went to go see them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think it does bring up a good question, though, that James said about asking off the wall questions in interview. I've heard of people being asked questions like, what is your favorite animal? Or what is your favorite food? If you were a refrigerator, what would be inside? So, what are some of those? What are you looking for? Do you ask those questions if you do? Or what do you think recruiters who ask those questions are looking for?
Yeah, I think that, well, we personally do not. In talent acquisition, we do not ask those questions. Now, that being said, when it comes to doing an on-site interview with a specific department or team member or team, that I should say, they may ask something around those questions or something that might be a little off the wall. I think the main thing that they're looking for is that you can kind of roll with the punches, right? That you're not in like this very kind of like blinder mindset of like exactly what you're going to be doing, that you can take something that might kind of throw you off guard, laugh about it and say, oh, well, I'd be baloney because I'm fun to be around, funny name, and because of the funny name and because I never expire or something like that, like just something random that you can kind of roll with the punches and think off the top of your head on how to react to something. There's no right or wrong answer to that. They're just trying to gauge how you would respond.
Yeah, that's good. Rolling with the punches, that's important.
This reminded me something. One question that I don't think people prepare themselves enough for is what's something positive about you as a professional and what's something negative, right? So it's important that you're honest with both of them. So something positive about me is that I really like networking with people and meeting with people. I'm just generally interested in talking and meeting with people and learning about their backgrounds. And I think that's what makes me such a great recruiter, is because I'm constantly curious about people and what they're doing and what could be a good fit for them in the future. Something negative about me is that I get really excited when people are talking to me, and sometimes I don't always listen to the details and I miss what they were going to say. And so I follow up and say, like, I have to be really cognizant when I'm talking to people that I might not have a good understanding of their background, to ask questions and follow up and not just be excited that I'm talking to somebody new. You know what I mean? So be honest about your negative experience, but also follow up with that, with how you're working on that. Don't just say, well, I procrastinate sometimes, and I procrastinate on not turning in my assignments until the very end of the deadline. Well, how are you working towards fixing that? Like even in your schoolwork, like I've made a goal for myself to start working on assignments within a day of receiving them, or my goal is to have things done 24 hours in advance of when it's due so that I have enough time to prepare or whatever, fill in the gap and not leave everything to the last second. So you want to be honest with your negative, but also you need to follow up and say, like, what are you doing about that? If you know it's something that's negative for you, how are you fixing it?
Yeah, that's really good advice. Is there anything they should stay away from saying is their negative, like any specific ones that are a deal breaker for you?
Well, I mean, if they're blatantly like, yeah, I really just don't want to work. I'm just doing this because my mom tells me I have to have a job. Like, well, then that doesn't mean that you're generally interested in like the position in the company. Or if their negative is, I really don't want to stay in Wisconsin. I want to like move to Antarctica and watch whales or something like that. Well, then obviously you're not going to be a long-term fit for the organization, and there's nothing that can be done about that. Like, you can't fix that. So you want to focus on things that are professionally related.
Yeah, that's good. Those negative and weakness questions are tough ones for students, so I appreciate you addressing those.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions for Sarah? This has been such an awesome conversation. Any thoughts? All right. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions, Sarah. So I want to thank you so much. And I'm seeing some thank yous in the chat. Thank you so much for being here today and talking with our students. We have recorded this, so we will definitely share it with some students that couldn't make it today. And we appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. I love doing these seminars and I love helping students. I used to work in higher ed, like I said before coming to Oshkosh. So it's just kind of part of my shtick, I guess, that I love helping out. So yes, please add me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer any questions for you if you have any follow-up questions if you think afterwards. Otherwise, thanks everybody for coming, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Sarah. You as well.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.